Welcome everybody to another episode of Memories of Us. Today we got Dr. C Love. How you doing today, girl?
I'm good. How are you, Tony?
I am doing well. So where are you at?
I'm in Los Angeles, but let me just start first of all by saying thank you so much for having me on your show. I love what you're doing. I've had a chance to look at a lot of the videos, and the work that you're doing is a contribution to the planet. And I just say thank you.
I want to say I'm very honored and for the kind words and everything, because we never know, right? We just get on this mission of ours and we just do that, and it's a good feeling to know that people are being impacted in a positive way about the work.
Absolutely.
So talking about the work, tell people about the work that you do and how you got into it.
Well, my name is Dr. C Love. I am a soul-centered professional life coach, and I also teach public high school. So that's a distinction in itself. Right. But I teach public high school. I live in Southern California. I've been doing this work in social services for about 30 years now. I am, really committed to supporting people getting to the next level of their life journey. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me how I got into the work, when I was 18, my twin brother was in a car accident. Actually, it was my sister who fell asleep behind the wheel. He was on his way home from Morehouse College. He was in critical condition for 3 weeks, and then he left this realm. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a place that I didn't know. Everybody's always like, you're born by yourself, you die by yourself. I had no paradigm for which to understand what they were saying to me. I just didn't get it. So that brought the sense of isolation and loneliness to another level. Right. And then I just, as I was, just kind of dealing with it, all the various first stages, the shock, the depression, insomnia, eventually I found myself working in a homeless shelter. And I was like, these are all my brothers. And I'm just working on intuition. This is before I started studying about it, anything. My heart was just like, give and connect with people. And while I was at the homeless shelter, that's when I started hearing all the stories of how people ended up in homelessness, from thinking high school was a joke and the party don't stop to fires and death, and the fact that like really losing a loved one can make you lose your mind. And I met those people too. All people still good at the core, but had fallen through the gaps of our social service construct. And so, at that point, I did a couple of things. I went back to school to get my master's degree in spiritual psychology with the emphasis in consciousness, health, and healing from the University of Santa Monica. Also went back for a master's in education. So went into the high schools to help prevent homelessness. And I work in the continuation option school. So I'm dealing with those young people, like we might be adults and we deal with loss, but what's happening to those young people that are dealing with loss? And where does, working on math and science play into that when we're just trying to catch our breath, especially in those initial phases, so, and so that's why, that's why I'm here. And that's what I do. And the greatest lesson, that my twin Garnett taught me was his last words to me were, "I love you." Now, that might sound like, oh, that's nice, but it wasn't just nice. It was significant because growing up, I don't know how the rest of your podcast listeners, the men are, but my brother didn't say, "I love you." I used to say, "I love you." He used to say, "Me too." But in our very last conversation, we were getting off the phone and I was like, "I love you." He said, "I love you too." And I was like, what? That was back in the day when we had the phones where you had to pick up the receiver and hold it. I was shocked. I looked at the headset. I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay. Never knowing that would be his last words. So
like it was intuitive.
Yes, he said, like you were saying in one of your podcasts earlier, or one of your guests was talking about how, time and time again, how somebody in their own way was saying goodbye, even though they didn't realize it until later.
Yeah.
And so I realized that was the gift that he left me. He said, "I love you too." And so even when he was in critical condition and couldn't talk for 3 weeks, I felt like he had said what he would want to say, you know, in those 3 words. Thank you for being my sister. Thank you for sharing this journey. You know, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. And that helps sustain me. So for me, I always let people know I love them. And I do it for me in case I die. I do it for them in case they're dying. They know how I feel. And if they died, I know that they knew how I felt. So I tell my students, I'm like, even if you're mad, you be like, I'm mad at you right now. I'm not liking you right now, but I love you. And to leave that and to not take grace for granted.
Right. That's truly important. I had to learn that too, you know. And it's interesting because everyone that I've ever known, family members, even my son, right, 2 weeks before he passed away, I remember he started to annoy me. This is how bad it was, right? He was annoying the crap out of me. We were we was watching Daredevil, and the whole movie he just kept turning around. Dad, I love you. Dad, I love you. And just wouldn't stop. He was just on repeat, right? And finally I was like, brother, I know you love me. He's like, I just want you to know, Dad, like if something was to happen, I want you to know that I love you. And I went, well, brother, you're not going anywhere. You know, like we got it since now that we're talking about it. And we had that conversation. And I told him, I said, one day I'm going to be gone. And you're going to be the man of your household. And so the same things that you see me do with you, I want you to do better.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we want for our children. We want our children to do better than what we do, right? So I began to set the bar high. And when he passed away, about a week after he passed away, I realized what he was doing. He had compiled so much life into such a short amount of time. And he was a very kind-hearted kid. But that intuition, I want my family to know that I love them.
Exactly.
Because I think deep down inside, he knew he was going to pass. And it was, you know, when he passed, man, it was something different, you know, definitely something different. Just the same thing when I lost my little brother, you know, he was, matter of fact, my dad passed away first and then my little brother passed away 3 months later. And I remember both of them being on the phone, and my dad had just got at the hospital. He was doing really well because he was in there for congestive heart failure. So everybody thought he was going to pass away. But when he woke up, he called me. It's like, hey, son, we're thinking about moving out to Colorado, right? And then, you know, we had a good conversation about that. My little brother was there. My little brother was like, well, you know, I just want you to know, you know, you've been my role model ever since I was a kid. You know, I've always looked up to you. And then a week later, my dad passed away. Yeah. That Sunday, as a matter of fact, it was a week apart. That first Sunday when he came out the hospital, he called me, and then I got a call the next following Sunday that he had passed away. My little brother, my God, he didn't deal with it at all. He didn't deal with it well at all. Him and my dad were like this.
What I also heard you say in that is something that's a significant tip. And I just want to just highlight that. Say what you can say while you can say it, you know, and that's just so, because you can't go back and do it again. So if there's something that's on your heart that's good to say, to acknowledge people, to recognize how they touched your life and impacted your life, then take the moment to do it. Don't wait. That falls under that category of don't take grace for granted to me.
Or don't live with regret. You know, and I've learned how to do that with my sister. I have a younger sister, and I tell her all the time, I was like, you know, regardless of what happens to either one of us, I always want you to know that I love you.
Yes.
And until I leave this world, I'm still here. So, you know, and we've had to work on that relationship, you know, and now my philosophy is similar to yours. I never want to walk away from someone feeling like I didn't say what I needed to say. You know, I want to make sure that they know that I care. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a total stranger. I want you to know I care. Just in case somebody else didn't tell you that. Because if you're not here tomorrow, I want you to understand that you're not by yourself and someone out here really cares about you. And I think that's really important to leave this world like this, right? We want to leave the people behind feeling as if the business is complete.
Exactly. And that's, one of the things within my coaching practice. I specialize in something called completion conversations. Mm-hmm. And that's for those people that didn't get to do that.
Right.
And there is a way to tap into the energetic field to bring some type. It's not the same exact thing, mm-hmm. but it is communication, connection, facilitating that completion conversation. Because some people, I think they get stuck in grief because they just feel such that hole, that loss. They're stuck in that. They're just stuck.
Right.
Like that very grief stricken, just in that mode. Like there's so much unsaid, so much undone. So let's have that conversation. Let me help.
And I think that's really important. And, because you do get stuck. You really do get stuck, that grief fog, right? Because after, even before, even after, you don't know what to say. And I think that's where where all the headache and stuff come from, because we don't normalize these conversations, even though we live with death on a daily basis, right? One day you hear it, one day you're not. It could be a friend, or it could be your wife, or it could be a family member. You just don't know. Mm-hmm. And I find that
we learned that very much through COVID. I mean, when you talk about just in the United States alone, over 810,000 people dying since March of last year.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
That's a lot of people. Yeah. That's a lot of families that have been affected forever.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to change them. Grief changes people. Grief changes people in a way that I don't really think we really understand. And I've seen both sides of the spectrum, when my loss first changed me, I realized, talking about homelessness, I realized down the road that I was going, I made a choice and I lost everything. Mm-hmm. Just 3 years ago, I lost everything, right? Mm-hmm. And making bad choices, not knowing how to deal with it as a man in society, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to navigate that world and then get hit back to back. And I went there. I went straight down that hole. And I realized that my friends who were still around, we really didn't have anything to talk about. Yeah. We had nothing to, even though they knew, they've all met, my son and everything. We had nothing to talk about, because it was like it changed the dynamics. Now that I've understood and have opened up the doors and have learned from individuals like yourself who is doing the work of normalizing these conversations, which is a beautiful thing. Now the conversations is around, hey, you know what? This is what I'm going through right now. And I find out, the connections that are being made through the trauma, right? And just the thought pattern, people being misunderstood, all of these things are being put out on the table. And so I can only talk about it from my half. So when you when you're doing this program and opening up the door to have these conversations, what does that look like?
Well, so when I'm sitting with someone and they are in that space, number one is just receiving the moment. Number one, just like, here we are, and it's very intentional. Right. So then once they just talk, and I'll ask questions, what's your favorite memory, this, that, and the other, and really just bring the energy of that person full force into the space.
Yeah.
And then when the client is ready, inviting them to say hi. Now, if we're in the physical space, it could look like it's gestalt. It's actually a coaching technique where you change chairs. So when you're in this chair, you're your voice, because everybody that we love is with us, really. Remember when people die and you at the funeral, you'd be like, you always with me, you in my heart. I'm yes, that's true. That wasn't just something you were saying. So we're going to tap into that. So reach into your heart and hear them. And I don't know about you, but my loved ones, like my grandmama and my grandmothers, I can still hear them very clearly.
Oh yeah.
My daddy, they talk to me all the time. So it's like, let's capitalize on that. Let's pull that forward. So then they come in and then it's like, okay, what did you want to say to them? And so once their energy is present in the room, they say what they were in the Zoom room, however the communication is happening. What is it that you really wanted to say to them? All right. Now pause. Now go back inside. And are they saying anything back to you? And if so, what is that? And so much of the time is so beautiful because when loved ones leave us, we can tend to blame ourselves.
Yeah.
And what I have found is so much love is coming back from the other side. It wasn't your fault. I always appreciated you. You did this and did that. I mean, it's just beautiful. And some things get more specific depending on the circumstance, but that's the general energy. And I just hold the space, and facilitate and I can hear too. So, if I hear something that didn't get said, I will say after, I'll just say, and I'm also hearing da 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 da. And I mean, it's just healing. Big box of tissue. Let's just go with it. It's a big box of tissue, and just let's get it out because those things go into our cellular body, and they can create sickness and holding on to it. I mean, and that falls. People. Mental health. People can go crazy from grief.
Yes.
Grief is not a joke. Grief is nothing to play with. It's like if you know that you are suffering a loss and you know that you're feeling the isolation, devastation, and all of those things, it's like get support, join your grief support group or something somewhere, because what they find, if they can make their way, and that's the general body. Sometimes people have to go big before they go small. Right. So, but if they just get into a grief support group, they're going to find people at different stages of grief. Some people at the beginning of it, some people have learned some tips and tools, and those tips and tools might be just enough to help that next person take a couple of more steps in their healing process.
Right. I don't think people really understand what true healing is, right? Because it's something that takes time. You have to work it through. You have to find, connecting with people. Yeah. I find that the community, right? Because no one wants to be a part of that community. No one wants to, especially, if you're a young man that's unfamiliar with support groups, because most men will turn around and go, support groups, that's not for me. Right. And they because they're thinking about it as something totally different. So getting people to actually want to be curious enough to come see what those support groups look like is the key to it. And I think, and like you said, I think a lot of it is tapping into what your heart is telling you, and understanding that, understanding what you want out of it. Like if there's something inside of your grief, you have to ask your grief, what can I get from you?
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that, because, one of my life philosophies and mantras is that for every pain, there is a gain. For every pain, there is a gain. And so then the question becomes, I'm in this pain, so how do I get to the gain? And so that, in my innocence, in my youth, it led me to service, but there was something in it. You're right. Connection, because you can lick your wounds by yourself, but you can't heal by yourself.
Right.
You can't, because we are in human form. We are designed for human connection. Right. It took two human, components to create us, and most of us in our incubation, we were in a 24/7 hug for the first 9 months of our existence.
Yes.
And if you were like my son, the first year of his life, he was always in somebody's arms for certain, and a little bit onto that before he started, you know what I mean? So he was always, so we're designed for that. And so when we are feeling weak, we also need that connection again to feel safe again. Because when you lose someone like that, it's like, I don't feel safe here. I don't know where I am. I don't trust anything. I don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
But there are people in that group, because that's a general statement. That's what grief says.
Yeah.
But there are people there. So it's like, who is it? And so what they will find if they go to a grief support group is that they're actually, it might not be the exact same loss and it might not be the exact same story, but there are people that understand
exactly
that catastrophic loss.
Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely true. And that's how it actually works. I get on men's case.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. Not in a bad way, but I make them use their head about the things that they say.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I do it is I want them to see that they're not by themselves.
Exactly.
So I always tell them, you think you're by yourself, man? That dude over there lost, X, Y, and Z over here. They're looking. I was like, this guy over here has lost X, Y, and Z. This person over here, you're not the only person, man. The only difference is that they're where they are because they chose to trust the process of grieving.
Yeah.
Giving themselves, learning how to give ourselves permission to grieve, right? And then allowing it to move through our body. So you said something interesting, how it does affect the body, right? And that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. A lot of the medical conditions that they go to the hospital for after a loss of a loved one over a period of time manifests themselves in sickness.
Exactly.
Undealt with.
Exactly. So that's why I say, if you want to get it out the body, there's this song, this gospel song that says, live through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, rock through it, cry through it, yell through it, scream through it, whatever you have to do, but try as soon as you're able to start moving the energy out of the body. Mm-hmm. Don't, like, we have this whole thing of like, this is my pain and we want to protect our pain, but we have to get it out of our bodies. And we do that, like I said, like being a service, finding things that our loved ones, like my cousin, mother had Alzheimer's, doing the Alzheimer's walk, doing, lupus walk, like finding a way to start moving the energy out and also connecting with people. Right. And you can start at any point you want. Maybe you're not ready for the support group, but maybe you find a way to, stop the violence. I've made some notes, breast cancer, whatever it is that's connected to something that you care about, and just start connecting in at whatever point that you can. And the rest of it will start to come. And that's one thing, people talk about stages of grief and steps through grief. But it's not like step 1, step 2, step 3. It's here, it's there, it's points in the healing process of grief. And they can show up for different people at different stages. So just jump in. Just realize you're on a new journey if you're grieving.
Right. And that journey, like you say, it starts when you make the decision. And you said something earlier about we being spirits having a human experience. Mm-hmm. Something just it dawned on me because it makes me smile, but it was the subconscious mind that I had to connect with my spirit in order to connect and actually understand what my body was telling me, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about healing, it's just not a one-sided thing. This is a whole entire thing, but you have to heal from the inside out, because I believe that the soul carries that love with us, and when that loved one is gone, it's still trying to connect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I made some notes for our talk conversation. I was like, pay attention to the signs, and the signs come in all kind of expected ways. Like I was playing my daddy left like a message song that came right after he left. Mm-hmm. And it was Don't Let Go by James Ingram.
Yes.
And so I'm playing it, and I'm playing on Spotify on my smart TV. Everything's cool. And then all of a sudden it just starts going, like in the middle of the song. Like my TV doesn't do that, but I had just typed, pay attention to the signs, and I just fell out laughing. I was like, I just fell out laughing because I've been, after all these years with the different people that have gone, I've learned to really start paying attention to the signs, and they find funny ways of getting messages through to us. You just might not hear a dramatic light flashing like you might hear on the TV, but it's little things, the same favorite number, the same, your color just keep popping up, or somebody says something they used to always say. It's just funny. It's just funny the ways that they will still let us know that they're with us, but we can only see it and hear it if we're paying attention, if we're tuned in, if we're open to it. Yes. So I'm like, don't miss the messages, y'all. Don't miss the messages. They still talking. You said you tell them you told me you were never gonna leave me, and they have never left. So the physical body's gone, the spirit is still there. Listen to the messages and keep that conversation going.
Mm-hmm. And that's crazy, because I still, like yourself, I still hear my grandmother. She was the hugest influence on my life. All the women in my family were huge influences on my life. They taught me. They taught me as I was growing up how to be respectful. They taught me how to somewhat be a man. It's kind of impossible for a woman to teach a man how to be a man. That's a man's role model. Role in another man's life is to pass on that.
True.
And to build better men, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, I look at everything that I've learned, and then I had to add some things to it, because I realized that there was a lot of things I was never taught, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm constantly, I can hear my grandmother in my ear, boy, that don't even make no sense, boy. I'm like, grandma, boy, I'm gonna pop you inside. I hear it all the time, right? I'm gonna pop you inside your head, boy. I could easily hear my son going, Daddy, you hear what she said? You might want to get yourself together. Jesus, a tag team over here, But I find that it guides me, though. It guides. I never know where my path is going to take me. Mm-hmm. I just know I'm supposed to follow it. Mm-hmm. Right? Somebody said, if you have a vision, you have to chase that vision. You have to chase it. And that's what it was, right? When we get into this sort of work, it's a compilation of things that have come together at one moment. And in that moment, you have to make a decision.
True.
Once you make that decision, the vision comes. Mm-hmm. And then the purpose is there, right? So finding reward in servitude is where I found my blessing. I was going, you know what? I don't want the next person to have to walk this road alone, because it's bad. If I'm going through this, I know the next person has to be going through it. And I'm considered a very tough person, right? We consider very tough people.
Exactly.
And, when that is stripped away, people tend to look at you, but still have those high expectations, And so now that's where the real strength comes from. You had to get beat down in order to get built up. And then that's when everything starts to make sense. It becomes a burden. It becomes this thing that you just know you're supposed to do.
Yes.
Right. When we start thinking about that, and the subconscious mind, once it connects the way that it needs to, right, with your soul and everything else that's going around you, I think that's where the beauty comes from.
Exactly. That's why I like to call that burden a blessing.
There you go. That burden is a blessing. But the reason being, because once that burden is there, right, it's on your heart. Yeah. It's not going to go.
Well, there's another word for that too. It's called a calling. It's a calling on your life. When I was in school, my professors, they had three fundamental questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? And how can I make the most valuable contribution?
Right.
And I have found myself over the last 20-something years having to re-answer this same set of questions.
Yes.
Because it evolves as we grow, as we go through things, as we incorporate the next level of our own personal evolution. Right. And so what I hear you also saying is it has led you to another level of service. Right. And how beautiful and generous, you saying, if I've been through this, then I know other people are going through this. So if I can help make that journey easier, then that is still part of your healing process.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the healing never stops. I think that's what people get the misconception. They think that it's going to end. It does get manageable over time. And just because you're grieving doesn't mean that you're not healing. Just because you're in pain doesn't mean that you're not healing. You have to make that distinction, right? You know what I'm saying? When you're grieving, ask yourself what you're grieving. You know, and then you may find that you may be grieving a multitude of things that you only thought that you was doing one. Right. So I tell people, unfold those layers, man, and attack them. Like, and I just like yourself, I tell people, you start with those 3 questions. And then before you move to the second question, you have to go through the A to Z format that comes with that first question. And people don't want to go all the way through that. They want to go straight to the next question. I tell them, I say, well, you know, here's the fun part about this. You're going to mess around and have to go back and actually have to address that. And they were like, well, I don't want to. Like, then you can't move to the next question. See, that's the way healing works. You can't skip. You can't skip out on it, because as soon as you feed one more than the other one, that one that you haven't been feeding, you definitely know it, because it throws you off balance, right? I remember having problems with my stomach and everything else, right? And my son's mom, she had said something, and I can't believe I'm actually giving her credit, but I'm giving her credit right now. I'm being nice. She told me, she goes, this type of grief kills people. And I did not realize that, right? Until I was sitting there about ready to take my life. Then I realized what she had said. And I was like, man, how is it that she's right? This woman is crazy. And I never did tell her that she was right. I'm not giving her the satisfaction of that one.
So you saying she saved your life? I'm just messing with you.
Oh my God, no, you did. No, actually, I think what she was saying.
That awareness is everything when you go.
Right.
Awareness.
She was just in tune to it, right? You know, and I think she was, in a way, she was her narcissistic attitude is what brought that out, because when she said it, it was actually supposed to have been a jab at me. That was her way of saying, this grief is going to kill you. That's pretty much what she was saying to me. But then once I realized what she had said, I was like, oh man.
I know my name is Dr. C Love, but even when you just repeated it, it just sounded like only love to me. I just had to say that. It just sounds like,
you know, I don't hate anyone. I love everyone equally, right? You know, and some people just need a little extra love, and some people need a little less love, right? So it's all love. I just give her less love. That's all. Well,
you might less love, but thank God you listened to her. We wouldn't be sitting on this podcast right now.
That's very true. But it took me 3 years for that to actually resonate with me, because for the first, it was actually 2 years, because my mother passed away 2 years after my son. And so I was still going through the process of my son, still trying to make sense of that. And then I was there when my mother passed away from a major stroke, and I was there holding her hand when she passed away. You know, and all I could remember was saying, I'm not even done with the last one, and now you're going to powerless on me too? I was like, man, no one knew how to deal with me. And I was around my sister, my family, and everything. And so I remember grabbing my sister's car and just picking it up and throwing it down on the ground. And she looked at me, she went, did you just pick up the back of my car? I went, yeah. She goes, I prefer you not do that again. And I went, what are we supposed to do? You know, and my sister was like, I don't know. And I went, we're orphans now. We're orphans in this world. How cruel can this be? How can we go from having our parents and having a full family to it's just you and I now?
Yeah.
Just my dad. Right. And it was just like, after that moment is when that phrase came in, because I was sitting there, like I said, you know, and I had the gun. I was about ready to pull that trigger, and divine intervention. Someone called my name in the middle of nowhere. And still till this day, I couldn't tell you. But that's when I realized I heard her voice as well saying, this type of grief will kill you.
Yes.
And then I really understood the deeper meaning behind it, right? You know what I'm saying? Because that's where the suicides come from. The attempt to suicide, the feeling of loneliness, the mental health. I didn't even know what suffering from a mental health illness was.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever taught me this, right?
Yeah, people think it's something that's like way out there.
Yeah.
There's something's wrong with you, or you know, because just how we heard it over the years. But in reality, it's just a part of our humanness. You know, and there's all types of health. I mean, there's physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, financial health. I tell my students, academic health, and then when it comes to like anything that's going on in the mind, what is our mind telling us about what we're going through at any given moment? Those things also impact the mental health aspect. And that's where that depression comes in. You know, why is this happening to me? Issues of self-worthiness, thoughts of I can't do this. You know, that's not the other kind of things that have, you know, greater implications that are under that. Mental health has tiers, but it falls under there. So the conversation that we're having with ourselves while we're going through any experience makes the difference.
Right.
Makes the difference. I was talking to someone, you know, when a little child falls, when they're learning to walk, there's no thoughts about it. They just get back up and they try again and they get back up and they try again and get back. They don't sit there and go, why did this happen to me? How can life do this to me? This, that, and the other. And you know, one of the things that I actually advocate for is that we as a society start having the conversation more about the process of moving through when people die.
Right.
Because it's going to happen to each and every one of us. I mean, this is a certainty. So to have such a lack of conversation about something that is so certain and leave people so unaware of the devastation that could be potentially coming and usually comes, you know, when it's, you know, those type of loss, like the ones you described, you know, and not just the loss, but being there, just watching and, you know, and feeling that powerlessness as it was happening, you know, it's just good. I'm so grateful we're having this conversation. It's an important conversation.
It really is. And you said something that a lot of people experience, which is that powerlessness, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't think people really understand that is part of the grieving process. You do feel this way, especially if you're put in a situation to where it's out of your control. We as people, we as human beings, we love to try to control things. As soon as we lose that, man, we lose our minds. You mean
look, men more so than women?
I cannot disagree with you there, because I was the same way. You know, and most men that I've talked to are the same way, right? We all struggle with that helplessness, especially if we feel that we can do something. But it's our nature, or what we think is in our nature, to be fixers, to be protectors. You know, if we can't fix it, we got to scramble around trying to fix it, right? Until we realize that we can't fix it.
Exactly.
Now, that's where everything comes in, because now the shame. You know, and I tell people the 5 stages of grief to a man would look totally different to a woman, because it doesn't go, you know, through the whole depression, anxiety, and things like that. That's part of it. Now, the physical parts of it is that you're going to see the anger, you're going to see the irritation, you're going to see the addiction, you may even see the homelessness. And if you're around, hopefully someone can always prevent this, but you will see the suicide. You know, and you can build your 5 stages of grief off of those right there, right? And then you put that out there and you go, hey, this is what mine looked like.
Yes.
You know, underneath all of this is what I experienced through all of these, which led me to the next stage. And what I did, I got into that ball. I got into that deep, dark well, right? And I didn't know how I was going to come out. I really honestly didn't. And I am just...
How did you get out?
Oh man, you know, that was a journey. But once I got to that place, once I got to that dark place, I realized how lonely I really was, and how much of a way that I wanted out.
Yes.
But then there was something inside of me that was resilient. So I'm screaming out, I'm screaming out for help. I need some help. I'm in this place. I got no walls. All I can see is the little dot of light at the top. And from where I'm looking, that's a far away. So, I began to just wish that someone would throw me a lifeline. Now, the proverbial lifeline kept dropping. And what it ended up happening is that now I can envision this rope coming down. Somebody's up there is throwing me a lifeline to help me out of this. And so every time I went to go reach for that rope, they would pull it up and kick dirt over top of my head. And I've said this many, many times. Every time they kick dirt over top of my head, I went, is that all you got? If you're going to bury me alive, bury me alive. And it was all of that trauma, all of those things that had happened to me my whole entire life. And I began to dissect it. And then it began to reward me with knowledge. So it got to a point to where, okay, you're gonna kick the dirt over the top of my head. I'm gonna extract this knowledge and I'm gonna push the dirt underneath my foot. And I'm gonna stand over top of it. So next time it comes down, I'm gonna reach for it. I know it's gonna go up. You're gonna kick more dirt over top of me. Then it became exciting. What else can I learn from this? Oh my God. So then the more dirt kept falling down. Eventually I was at the top. And I came out of there with all of these tools in my tool belt. And I felt this sense of peace. But then there was something that happened in me that I didn't understand. I had a whole different connection. Like I could hear my loved ones a lot better. And I began to get happy. Right. And that's what it was. It was like, man, I love this feeling. Even though I had to go through all of this, I have to see who I am now. So I began to look in the mirror and I began to see that change, not just the outwardly, but the inward change that was starting to manifest itself out in the physical world. And then I went, man, what can I do with this? So then there was this hidden mission inside of me of who can I share this with?
Exactly.
Right? Who needs this? Who can I give this to? I began that mode of servitude, even though I'm still grieving and feeling the pain. I understood it's part of the process, it's part of the journey of the story that we live. And I wanted to make sure that it was authentic.
Yes.
I just wanted I wanted my story to be authentic of my truths that I've walked. And then the second part was, now that I realized that I'm going through all of this, I wanted to get support, right? So I'm like, man, there's so much more I need to learn. But then I started finding all these support groups and there was none for men out here. And so I'm going, well, that don't make no sense. Why not? And then I began to get angry. I was like, man, this doesn't make sense to me. But then all of these other things started to compile in of why it didn't make sense to me. Right. And then once it made sense to me, I went, man, I want to connect with other men. So I started it's that energy that you give off. I started attracting other men in some of the most craziest places. Craziest conversation I had was walking through a Dollar Tree. And I was just going, I was going to get some cookies and potato chips and candy and stuff like that, because I was going to lock myself in the house for a little bit and try to figure this thing out. And I was just going to be a junk food junkie for a little bit, And I remember this guy, he walks past me and I'm standing in line and I saw him walk in through the door. And it's like both of us, we knew. There was something about it. So the whole time I'm trying to put my head down. I can see him walking. I'm looking at him. He's checking me out. Now he's not grabbing anything. He's just looking through the aisles and everything. And something just said, put your basket down. And when I put my basket down, this man walked up to me and he looked at me. He goes, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to be here talking to you right now. It's crazy how that worked, because that morning his daughter just passed away. And he was trying to go through all the familiar things, something that would make sense to him. And here I am talking with him. And we stood in the Dollar Tree. People just walked around us. They paid us no, never mind. They was listening to the women loved it. Women were like, are these two men really having this conversation? And we were just talking. And he broke down and started crying. And people were like, okay, what just happened here?
Mm-hmm.
When it was all said and done, that man gave me a hug. He says, man, thank you very much. To this day, he's one of my good friends.
Amen.
To this day. And it's happened like that ever since then, like meeting people like yourself, because of that energy. We work this, you
exactly.
know, this thing called us. It's not like we called it. No one wakes up and says, I'm going to do, well, no, I take that back too. I have a friend, Jenny. She woke up one day and said, I want to do grief work. And I was going, who does that? Do you know what you have to go through in order to do
the grief work me.
Yeah, you know, but you know, she was her gift was different. She didn't have to experience the grief. Mm-hmm. The grief was already around her. Mm-hmm. And she chose to absorb it, learn mm-hmm. from it, and then her calling came out, and she got good at holding space for people. She got good at all of these things, and she just said, this is what I'm going to do. And just like most of us, she just lit this path up, and I've watched her blaze that trail, man. And I'm looking at her going, man, if I'd never seen it, I would never believe it, right? You know, and but for the ones of us who have had to pay the high price of the gift that we give back into the world, you know, it's definitely life changing, right? But it can be a beautiful thing when you can look at the next person and honestly look at them and go, I hear exactly what you're saying. But most of all, I see you with my eyes, but I see what's inside of you too. I can see the hurt and the trauma. Mm-hmm. I want to walk with you, willingly want to walk with you without any strings attached.
Yes.
Right. And I believe that's where that strength comes from, that we gather from these things, you know, from these situations and things.
It makes me think about what you were saying when you were like, why don't you just bury me alive?
Yeah.
Why you keep sending me just this little bit of dirt? You know what I heard? I heard you was getting some supplies so you could fortify your foundation so you could climb your way out of the space that you were in to get to your next level.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it was. And you did the same thing. So going through your process, let's talk about your process for a little bit. What did that look like? You know?
For me, woo-wee. I mean,
she said, ooh, wee, here we go.
I mean, you know, it's like which one, you know, because I had like, you know, of course it was my twin, which was the hugest, most imprint on my life. And then about 5 years after she passed, 4 to 5 years, I found my grandmother when she passed. One of my grandmothers, I found her when she passed. And then, like I said, 16 years ago, my sister. So it's like, it's just been the imprint. So I have found myself. And I'll share this story about that process. So when my twin died, I felt a responsibility to be strong. And I don't know why that was my instinct to just be strong for everyone. And the most vivid memory was being literally at the gravesite, you know, after all of the services was done and just being at the gravesite. And, you know, we threw the dirt, you know, and it was time to walk away. And I felt my legs anchored. You know, I didn't know what to do. And I just kept hearing this voice say, pick up your feet and walk. Pick up your feet. And I listened, you know, and I can't tell you the walk to the car or back to, somehow I got back to the vehicle. But I was mad at myself for a long time about that. I was mad for being so strong. I had my whole family around me. It was my twin. I could have fell out all I wanted to, and everybody, at least in that moment, would have understood why it was so hard. But I led everyone to believe that I was so strong. And they used to tell me that. And I used to say, why would, excuse me, can you turn that on, please? And close the door. Thank you. Why did I do that to myself? What did I think I had to prove while I was in the middle of dealing with that kind of horrific grief. It took me getting older. I was only 18. It took me getting older to realize that it was very reasonable that I could have had needs, that I would have, felt what I was feeling at that moment. And that haunted me. It haunted me for like decades, And so when my sister passed away, I gave myself permission, to grieve in the moment, to not delay the beginning of the healing process, to go ahead and just let myself feel it. So that's kind of how I have dealt with it. Being a service, I started working in a homeless shelter. I started talking to other people. I wanted to hear about the stories and the various things that people were going through in their life, because, up until that time, I had been pretty much, protected from the great griefs of life. I didn't realize how much people were actually going through.
Oh, yeah.
And so once I found out by working in the shelter, like almost so much of the various conversations you've talked about today, like it all saw those people often end up in the shelter. So I heard all of these thousands of stories. So that led to me getting to the high school saying, hey, if I can prevent this pain for you and your children, I'm here for your grandchildren. So service was my pathway out for the, service, healing, listening, connecting, everything that we've been talking about, and talking to others. I've had a lot of people listen to me and pass me tissue.
Hey, the tissues are important.
I've had a lot of people tell me, just let that come up. Just let that come up. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to let it go. And then the joy and the humor. My twin and I, we used to watch the Wonder Twins.
Okay.
And there was a saying, Wonder Twins, power activate.
Yep. I remember that.
So like in this great moment of healing, I heard him say I'll be spirit. And I said, I'll be an earthly angel. And that's how I've been living ever since.
See, I love that right there. Now, so if someone was to get in contact with you and wanted to, participate in the work that you're doing, what would they expect? What could they expect to get from you?
They would expect someone who can hear them and not only hear them, but hear the love that's around them and hold that space. And they could expect some practical strategies to help them access their own loving, their own healing, their own lessons, getting to the gain that's in their pain and moving forward with their lives.
Right. Okay.
And one of the things that surprises people that work with me is how humor is present, even in, we're like, you might be crying, like, it's like, it doesn't have to just be just all pain,
right.
Because that's not it. We're multidimensional beings, and the humor is there. You hear something, even in the midst of somebody crying, they could hear something one of their relative, their loved ones said that was funny, and then in the midst of their crying, they just bust out laughing, and I'm just sitting there holding space because I have no idea what they're laughing about, but that's okay. I don't have to. I just help facilitate conversations, with themselves and with their loved ones.
See, I do love that right there, the humor part, because I'll get into, I didn't even know I was doing that at first. I used to feel bad about it, right? But until I realized how much fun it was to share those funny stories. I shared stories about my son when he tried to set me up several times, because for some odd reason, he thought that I needed a girlfriend, right? And that was him. He told me one day, because when I got custody of him, I had dedicated my life to being a father to him, right, and being a better man. So he knew what that looked like when he got older, and because I knew he was always watching me, so I didn't drink. I didn't do any of those things. He always saw me, taking care of myself. And I often share that story, the one story in particular. we were walking through the grocery aisle, and so he kept knocking the cereal down and blaming me. And I'm looking at him. Yeah, you know, and he was. See, there you go, right? Him at 6, 7 years old, you know, we going through the aisle, and I can hear, you know, I've got the car, and I can hear boom, 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 boom. And then he would walk up in front of me. So when people turned around, I was stopping and looking at the cereal aisle, and people would look at me. He would start laughing.
That's funny. That's good.
Exactly. Right? So I told him, I said, you know what? I'm not messing with you right now. It's something wrong with you. Keep it up. I'm going to duct tape you and put your little butt in the bathroom until I get done. So he was like, you got to catch me first, Dad. So he had concocted this whole thing in his head. He was going to get me a girlfriend. So same out, just going back to a different way, went by the flowers. I wasn't paying no attention to it. What he had done, he had scouted ahead and seen a woman across the other side. So when I walk up, he's just walking through the flowers. I didn't even know the woman was over there. But he kept looking back and going like this, and he's smelling the flowers. As she's reaching, coming up from behind the counter, he looks at her, looks at me, and sniffs the flower and goes, Dad, sometimes you just have to stop and smell the roses. This woman turned around and was like, oh my God. And he took off laughing as he was running down the aisle. And I'm looking at the women going like this. I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but I'm pretty sure I just got set up by my son. She was like, oh, he must have got it from somewhere. I was like, trust me when I tell you, he did not get that from me. I don't even know where he got it from. And so she didn't believe me. This stories like that, I can laugh at all day long because I sit back and go, man, if people only knew the character that, you know, that he was, or a friend of mine, you know, before he passed away, he got me in trouble too. Set me up, and I was like, you do realize that if they do come over here, I'm going to jail, right? He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, but I'll bond you out, Tony. I was like, you don't understand. I don't want this on my record.
You know, and it's something I just want to bring up in what you're saying, and that is sometimes it's good to talk to someone who only knows the story from our perspective.
Right.
Sometimes we want our relative who is also dealing with the loss to listen to us, but they've got their own grief and their own perspective. So sometimes, you know, for the healing, it's good to just talk to someone who can listen from a neutral observer perspective, and just hear the story and its delight. You know, sometimes like I remember, and then family then get into debate. That's not how I remember it. You know, it's like, I'm just trying to share with you how I feel. Well, I'm just saying, you know, like then it becomes something else. Like, So sometimes it's good to talk to someone who, you know, and don't expect people to be where they're not. You know, everybody can't listen. Everybody can't listen. So who can listen? That's who you want to talk to, else you're really wasting your time.
But, you know, those go hand in hand. You know, because we don't expect people to get to where we are. It took a lot of work for us to get here in this moment to be able to share these stories so openly, right? You know, and feel comfortable about the journey that we got to get here, you know? And so I love that you said that, because with those people that aren't there yet, I like to go and meet them in the mud where they are, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I realize being mindful and walking that road of grief with someone and just being there in those moments with them is the best feeling in the world, right? To go and meet someone where you wish someone would have met you.
Yes.
Right? You know, and go there without judgment, just open, just being there with them and sitting down in the mud, because there's been many people I've sat in the mud with and they go, I don't want you here. I go, I know.
But we're here.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know, as a matter of fact, I ain't even taking off my shoes. I'm just coming out in the mud with you. You know, we're going to see how this thing goes. And then once we swim around in the mud a little bit, I look at them and go, you know, mud's good for your skin, but eventually we have to get out. You know, and it's that process of coming out of there and stepping on semi-solid ground with them and looking at them and going, you know, I don't know where this is going to go, but I do know that there's a whole world out there that we can explore together in this journey that you're going on. And if you would allow me, I would like to walk with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've learned a few things on my walk, you know, and that I think that could help you. I believe it can help you along the way. So if it's okay with you, if you give me permission, I would love to walk this journey with you. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's what it's about. That's exactly what it's about. That's that purposeful, meaningful life, you know, the servitude and then the reward. Because once they get to that point and they're strong, you see them. You see the whole
Yeah.
transformation from a different perspective. And I never let them give me credit for anything because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. My goal
Well,
is
you did. You did.
no.
You said,
Actually,
guess what
the
you
work
guess
is
what you did?
theirs.
Guess what you did though?
The work is theirs.
But you said I'm here.
Yeah, and that's all I did. And I
That's
know
everything.
that is everything. That can be everything right there. But the work that they do to get there is theirs. Because
Of
you
course.
can't tell a person how to walk it, right? You know what I'm saying? You can accompany them along the way, but eventually their path is going to take them somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting there. I just look at them, they go, Tony, you know, I said, look, man, you did the work. Because for one, you had to figure out how to get out of the spot that you were in to get to where you are right now. And now the doors opened up over here. And now you're brave enough to carry all of that with you, with your head held high, with your heart beating real strong,
Mm-hmm.
with this driving you. And now you're going this way. You're going to make, I always encourage them, you know, you're going to do good work.
Yes.
You're going to do good work. And so therefore I never take the compliments. I don't need it. You know, it's not about me. I realize that what we do is bigger than us. It's not about us, right? It really isn't. It's about everyone else that we can touch. And I just want to touch as many people as I can. Honestly, it's like, hey. But in the time of COVID, you got to worry about
I know,
who
right?
touching now, right? You know,
I'll think about touching you over here from over here.
I shoot them an email. So I'm touching you. Go on TikTok. We'll do the virtual high fives and stuff like that. All of those good things. So if you had any encouraging words to tell someone out there, what would you tell them?
I would first of all tell you that I'm so sorry for your loss, that you are not alone. Be gentle with yourself. And even while you're going through the various points of grief, take care of yourself as best you can, you know. Take care of your health as best you can. And when you're ready to tap in, connect in, whether it's through a support group, whether it's directly talking to someone, whether it's, you know, joining a cause that was significant to the loss of one of your loved ones, but somehow start connecting in, start stepping out, especially if you're somebody who finds yourself in isolation. I mean, and even in consideration of what we're going through now with COVID, like how can I begin to connect? And I'm just going to take it one more level. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please don't do it. Please don't do it. You can live through this, and there you can find joy on the other side. So reach out, pick up the phone, call the National Suicide Hotline Prevention Line, you know, call anybody, post it on Facebook, post it on it, let somebody know. Right. Let somebody know that that's the depth of your pain. And just keep pushing through. Just keep on going. Keep on going. There's a purpose for your living, and it lives beyond your pain.
That's beautiful. I truly love that. So how can people get a hold of you, and what do you have coming up?
A lot of exciting things. If you're someone that wants to talk to me, you can reach out to me through my website, drseelove@icloud.com. That's DRSEELOVE. at iCloud.com. I have a podcast, Conversations with Friends, with my co-host, Danny McFarland. And you can find us at cwftalk.com. And Dr. C Love on the other social platforms.
Awesome.
And Love is here.
There you go. I love it. I do love it. And I want to say, man, it's been such an honor to have you on the show today and everything. I had a blast talking with you. I hope the audience will get a lot out of this and everything. And man, with that being
grateful too. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for this conversation. It's been awesome.
It's been an honor, to have conversations with people like yourself, because I think it's really important that people hear these conversations, can relate to them, and understand that you're out there, right? Because otherwise people just run around searching, and trying to figure it out. What they don't realize is that we've done the work. Mm-hmm. You've done the work. You don't have to go through, the whole getting beat upside the head with the center block type thing, because that's exactly what it feels like when you're walking through it. You have people like yourself and like myself and so many others out there that are willing to come and meet you right there. Right there. We're not asking you to come where we are. That's a hard walk. And eventually you will get there, but it takes time. And so with that being said, I want to say thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor to hold space with you and have this conversation, and looking forward to having you on again if you're up to it.
Absolutely, I would love to.
Yeah, after the new year, I'm thinking about having a lot of return guests on and everything, and I would love to have you on, and we could pick a topic and tear it apart and have a beautiful conversation.
Absolutely.
That is awesome.
I can talk. I got that from both my grandmamas.
Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. So it takes a lot to get me to talk. But since I've been doing podcasting, I found myself talking a whole lot. I'm just like, where did this come from? Oh, I'm just a talker.
It was there all along.
It was there all along. I just never knew what that voice sounded like, right? Not until I stopped screaming and reclaimed my manhood. And then after that, my voice changed, and then I could hear it clearly. So I've been using that ever since then. And it's been an honor. It's definitely been an honor. And
the world is better for it.
And, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the world better for everyone that's coming behind us, right? And for the ones who are here now, so they can have something to give their family members behind them as well. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. It's all about serving each other, being a part of this community. No one has to be part of, but making it a strong community, right? Mm-hmm. We're here. Nothing's going to change. We might as well work together and get through this together, right?
That's right.
Yeah, because tomorrow's another day. But today, the day counts more than tomorrow. Because what you do today will dictate your tomorrow.
Amen. Ashe. Ashe. Namaste.
we namaste, girl. We namaste all over the place now. We namaste. With that being said, I love this. You guys will see Dr. C Love again. If you haven't already, her links will be down below. Check her out. Reach out to her, especially if you're struggling and want to be around someone who is familiar with these conversations. I think you guys are going to be very impressed. I know I am. And, it's just been an honor to be able to talk with her today. And hopefully you guys got something out of it. Until next time, you guys keep your head up, stay connected, and support one another, because love is here.